Hello, everyone, and once again, welcome. My name is Terry Locklear, and I'm from the Office of Online Learning. Um, so the title of this the title of this session is "Let There Be Video," and the overall objective for this session is uh, by the end of this session, you should be able to explain the advantages and challenges of implementing video-based teaching strategies in online courses. So, the first in the first section of this presentation, I would like to discuss with you what the research is saying about implementing video in online courses. And during my based on my research, I was able to find like these five themes essentially, which is a ratio of video to other content. There's some challenges. You may see some challenges associated with price, the impact of production value on learning, content expertise versus media or pedagogy expertise. Excuse me. And also, there's this question of standardizing video production. Okay, so the first theme here is related to video to course content ratio. And when I was thinking about how to best discuss this, I thought about the reason that the dog is there, the analogy of the tail wagging the dog, because sometimes in instructional design and instructional technology, we can often learn about new tools, and you may think, or you may start thinking, that's a new tool or something cool, and I'd like to implement it. So the question is the tail wagging the dog? Essentially, are you using video because? So the question is, are you using video because it's cool, or you've got a new camera, or you've got some new program, or are you using, or you do you want to strive to implement video into your courses because it's going to add some real instructional value? So anytime that you're recording or thinking about recording or creating a video, the research essentially says you should consider asking yourself, should this be a video? When you think about the content, is it best delivered in video format? Um, and also, the research indicates that we should strive to find a good balance between text, video, and other tools. So, and also the video, I'm sorry, the research indicates that the best videos are short and concise. So, 8 minutes or less, definitely less than 10 minutes. Um, those are going to be the ones that students are going to prefer, and that they best react to, or their preference is going to be geared towards shorter videos. So theme number two, price, and this theme may not necessarily impact all faculty members, but if there's maybe a department chair or a dean or someone in an administrative role considering a program-wide or a department-wide approach, some of this is worth thinking about, at that level. And when we talk about when we consider price, video can be expensive, but I found some studies that indicated that 1 hour of high quality, polished, highly produced video can cost about $4,000. And that's just for 1 hour. So that's depending on whether. So you're going to respond to that differently whether or not you're at a faculty member level or an administrative role. So video production tends to be a resource intensive endeavor when you're thinking about, and if you're doing something with a high production value, there can be all kind of factors to consider. um, So, if you're going to be doing something that's going to be highly produced, you may want like a crew and, some staff members to help you out. And we'll talk about your options a little bit later with that as well. And then, you've also got to consider the time it's going to take to record and produce and get that content out for sharing. So that's something to keep in mind as well. That the process it doesn't tend to be very quick, so it can take some time to get out, and just take note that uh, prices typically rise with the production value. So the higher the level of production value, the uh, the the price is going to rise with that. So, and going right along here brings us to theme three, which is production value. So it's going to wide production value in online learning is going to vary widely. There's it can range all the way from professional TV style productions to what we're calling lightweight do it yourself or DIY approaches. That may be shot in a makeshift studio or maybe even on a cell phone. Um, the research does agree that high quality audio is absolutely indispensable. The most important thing, in terms of instructional videos is going to be audio. So audio is like a non-negotiable, but depending on the content, um, the production value is widely unclear. So there's really not a lot of research that supports the idea that uh, all con to have a successful instructional video, it has to be high quality in terms of production value. So it's more important to concentrate on audio. So if you think about Khan Academy, if anybody's ever seen any videos from Sal Khan from Khan Academy, his some of his most popular videos are the ones that he made early on. He actually started out by just making videos for his, I think it was maybe his niece, and they were actually the lowest produced. They were the lowest. Uh, they had the lowest production value. Essentially, he was just making videos to tutor his niece, and he was just sharing them through YouTube. And if you look at the number of views, um, those earlier videos have are some of the most popular ones, to date. So that kind of um, reduces the idea that you've got to have high production value, which is a good place for us to be. So, theme number four, and I know this may be tough to grapple with some of us, in faculty. You know, some of us tend to think we're a content expert, we're a subject matter expert. So that it's got to equate to, it's got to mean that I'm also a media or pedagogy expert as well. But the research indicates that really video production and even not necessarily the technical side, just the content delivery and being able to speak in front of a camera or speak while you're being recorded, it requires a different type of skill. And one of my favorite quotes that I found in one of the papers said that many first many first-time online instructors falsely believe that they can translate their offline teaching experience to an online environment without any preparation. So essentially, it's saying that to make a good instructional video, you've got to really prepare. And when I say instructional videos, I'm not just talking about going into just say you teach a class online and face to face. You say, well, I want to record my face to face class and make it available to my online students. That's not the best approach for providing your online students with content via video, because it's almost like, if you're going to hand students a video of a class that was recorded face to face, it's almost like those individuals are experiencing the course uh, like looking in a window. So they're not going to be able to participate and interact and ask questions like those that are in the class. And it's you're looking at an archived course from last week or last year. It just doesn't make it's not the best approach for online students. So essentially for this theme, another key piece to consider is that um, the research seems to indicate that the more time and the more preparation that you spend prior to deploying the video or prior to recording, the more successful it's going to be, or the more successful you're going to be in terms of overcoming the challenges associated or that can be associated with making videos. It's always good to make a dry run. So basically, if you want to say just do a 1 minute video from recording to editing, if you're going to do some editing to posting and sharing, just to make sure that process works seamlessly. So just if you're going to try to do it yourself, just go all the way through the process. Just make something short, testing one, two, three, four, five. Make sure you can record. Make sure the video's clear. You can hear the audio. um, do some editing if you'd like, and you also have the ability to share. So it's always good and best practice to make some dry runs before recording a 1 hour lecture, or recording a lot of content that you may have to redo or re-record. So it's always a good use of your time to practice and prepare. So theme number five in the research has to do with standardization, and this is another discussion that's going toward in the administrative level, of a dean or a program chair. And when we say standardization here, we're talking about this question of, if I'm in a particular department, should all of our departmental videos have a similar look and feel? So, the research suggests that looking, outside, and thinking about that, on paper, it sounds like a good idea. It sounds like a good idea, but really, when you get down to putting it into practice, it can be a little bit, it can be tough to implement unless you have those resources in terms of production teams and staff to assist. Another challenge with doing some a standard with a standardization type approach is that it discourages experimentation, and it doesn't really highlight. There's not, in some cases it may suppress that sort of creative aspect of how different instructors can, their approaches. So you may want to avoid standardization if you want to ensure that everybody's personality comes out. You provide the most flexibility for approaches. So the takeaway here is that really there's no one size fits all approach, especially for an institution, like us. We're a teaching institution. We're a mid-size, liberal arts school. So we want to encourage all of this, as much creativity and flexibility as possible. Okay, so transitioning from themes to recommendations here. So essentially, the research had three recommendations that sort of stood out, and those are, think twice before using video, make the best use of video as a medium, and consider lightweight and DIY approaches. So recommendation number one, think twice before recording. It goes back to the earlier discussion in the literature. Um, it consistently noted that the bulk of content delivery in most online courses is done through pre-recorded videos. So I looked at a study that examined some online courses through through some of your more prestigious online universities, and you talked about uh, the the amount of content that was delivered through video. And I think it goes back to our assumption that the best online courses replicate face-to-face courses, which that's not always true. So you really got to consider your content and maybe work with an instructional designer and think about your and working with an instructional designer, you can really think about the best way to deliver that content online versus how you deliver it face to face. It may not always be the same. So the research also indicated that course designers routinely noted that intensive part of uh, the most intensive part of this process was the design, the design phase, and just kind of thinking about how you can storyboard this thing out, which goes back to it goes back to the importance of preparation. So the research also suggested that that in some situations they discouraged the use of video in online learning courses because there was simply so much, rather than having everything delivered, or a lot of your content delivered by video. It makes a much more sense to utilize different media platforms. So we talked earlier about text and presentations, PowerPoint, that sort of thing. You can also consider audio only formats as well. Podcasts are really becoming popular now, and if it can be delivered through just audio, it may simplify your production process, as well as make the content more accessible to students and more flexible to them as well. Maybe they listen to it on the go and that sort of thing. So our second recommendation here is make the best use of video as a medium. And basically what we're recommending is be intentional about the use of video to accomplish your pedagogical goals. So going back to that assertion that it's important to really think about your goals and what you want to accomplish, and determine whether or not a video is the best way to go. Um, when your goals and your when your goals and the medium of video is not well aligned, um, other forms of media for learning should be considered. So in that case, in some cases, video is the right choice, but it's not always. So, finally here, and then we're going to finish this slide and then get into some practical approaches. This is our last recommendation, number 3. Really consider the lightweight is what they called it, lightweight or DIY approaches. Um, I based on my experience and what I've read, it's essentially you've got to you've got to weigh your risk reward when thinking about how much time you want to spend and how much production value you want to add to video. What's the long term goal? Because sometimes it the sometimes it's called for a high a high production team that may include camera people, editors, and that sort of thing, and we have some resources on campus. Sometimes that may be the case, but if that is the case, you've got to think about resources, which it may not necessarily be money, right? Resources can come in time and in multiple forms. So since there's little to no evidence to support the claim that high production value leads to superior learning outcomes, so I think we should weigh the risk reward accordingly. and also in many cases opting for a DIY production process is really a good way to achieve your objectives. So I'm happy to endorse an approach that really makes use of existing resources and prioritizes the learning and the pedagogy over any sort of technology that's new or cool. So if you think about now our smartphones and webcams, what we easily have access to these days, a lot of them come out of the box with high definition cameras, and we can easily make videos kind of on the go. And depending on the long term strategy, that may be fine just to pull out your uh, phone or use the webcam on your computer and make a quick video, right? It really depends on what's the it really depends on what's the long term strategy here. The approach you take for making a video is gonna depend based on. So, for example, if you wanted to just make one quick announcement to your Tuesday night class and say, I would rather just make a quick video rather than posting, a text-based announcement, it's perfectly fine to pull out your cell phone, record it, um, let the students see you, maybe if you're at home or out in the park or wherever, just something real quick. So and that's essentially a one-time use type video, right? An announcement you just want to send to one certain class. Your approach to that video is going to be a lot different than just say you're a professor that teaches 3 sections of the same course, right? And there's 10 or 15 chapters, and I'm gonna take some time to make my module 1 or chapter 1 video, and I'm gonna make sure that um, I I prepare this video in such a way that I can use it for not only this course but more courses to come, right? So essentially what I'm saying is the approach you take for making a quick announcement to one class versus the approach you're going to take for making a video that's going to be used multiple times in many different classes is more than likely going to be completely different, right? Okay, so now let's get into some practice. We've talked about the theory. Let's get into some practice. And I know you're sitting there thinking, like, while I'm talking about all this theoretical type stuff, you may be thinking that I came to this presentation hoping that you were going to tell me how to make videos or how to have videos in my online courses, right? So I'm sure that you're thinking, well, how are we going to do this, Terry? Well, the answer is it's complicated, right? So I was thinking about going to Facebook, looking at the options, for relationship status. It's complicated. This is one of those complicated ones, right? So we talked about the theory, and now we're going to talk about how to implement some of that into practice. But it's going to really be a broad overview. It's going to have to be a broad overview because there's so many because the equipment versus the expertise versus the resources that each of you have is going to vary widely depending on your situation. So I'm gonna just try to provide you with a broad overview of the steps you have to have, or the steps that you need to take to produce a video, essentially. Okay, so step number one, you've got to film it. So you have several options for filming or recording videos. Like I said, you can do it on your phone. Most phones now have a front-facing and a rear-facing camera. The rear-facing camera is typically higher quality. It's typically better, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to look at it and see if the video is framed, while you're recording. And that's where the dry runs or the tests. That's where the importance of those come in. So essentially, on the low end, you could basically take your cell phone and put it up on a table or up on your desk or on a few books, and align it with your face or whatever level you want to get it up to. Click record, and there you go. You've got a video. At the second level, you may have access to a high definition or kind of a mid-level or a mid-level USB camera that just plugs right into your computer, and then you can kind of sort of do the same thing. And then there's a standalone video camera, which is going to produce better looking, higher quality produced videos. So that's step number one. Once you have your recording, step number two, you're going to most likely need to transfer it to a computer, right? And when I'm thinking about the different paths, the varying paths you can take, the way in which you do step number two, the way in which you achieve that is going to vary whether or not you have a Windows machine or an Apple machine. So your options are going to vary based on your operating system, essentially. Okay, step number four. If you're going to produce if you want to post or you want to offer students a decent video with some level of production value, chances are you're going to have to do some level of editing, or you're going to have to work with somebody to provide some editing services for you. And these are examples of some software tools here. This is Final Cut Pro. The first one is Final Cut Pro, and then Camtasia. Let's go. Camtasia tool that's kind of been around for a while. And this is PR. This is Adobe Premiere, and this last one is just this last one is just iMovie. And bang for the buck, iMovie is a good one because it's a free video content creation program that comes with Mac computers. The challenge with Premiere and Final Cut is price. They're kind of expensive, but the production value you can achieve is top notch. The only one here that's really specifically designed for education is Camtasia. So with Camtasia, you can actually record your screen. You can post questions and little quizzes in the middle of a video. So if you wanted students to start watching a video and 2 minutes in, give them a little quiz about, ask them some questions about the content along the way, you can do that with Camtasia. And price wise, it's like $100 or something like that. So that's a good software program that works. It actually works with Windows and Mac. Okay, so that's step number three, and now our last step is to share. So step number one is record. Number two is import it into your computer, depending on which operating system you have. Number three is edit, if you want to do some level of editing. And the final step here is sharing. So for sharing, there's many ways that you can do that. You can just simply upload a video file to a Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. You can upload video directly to Canvas, or you can use tools like Microsoft Stream or YouTube. So the way in which you provide the content to your students is going to vary as well. So going back to that idea, when you think about these 4 steps, I'm sure that each one of you have a path, from step 1 to step 4. I'm sure that everyone listening has an idea about, some sort of idea about the path that you have, the path that you will take based on the hardware and software and resources that you have access to. And I'm almost willing to bet that there's no 2 paths that are going to be the same. Okay, so how can I get help? If I want to record something high quality, if I want to make some high quality educational videos for my students. How can I get help, right? So the interactive video facility in the business building does offer some services, and their webpage is they're linked off of Do It, and their staff is James and Marquita. So that's they're available to help you out if you're really interested in doing something with some high production value, maybe like adding like intros and that sort of thing to your video. You can even use their facility for have access to high definition cameras and high quality microphones and that sort of thing. So that's on the high end. Well, there's also a shortcut here. That's if you can work with James and Marquita if you want to go through the high end of those achieving those steps 1 through 4. But on the DIY low end or quicker way to achieve that is just through the baseline. The quickest way to get a video out is to just pull out your phone, record something, upload it to YouTube. I think even now you can go to YouTube, and I don't even think you have to record the video first. I think you can open the YouTube app and just record from there, actually. So that's kind of a 30,000 foot view of how you can from theory to practice on how you can maybe get some video implemented into your course and using some best practices in terms of theory. So this is my resource that I used here for the presentation, and now I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I'm happy to answer some questions. I see that there's some activity going on in the chat, but does anybody have any questions?
Harry, it's David. Just a quick comment again. How are you doing?
Hey, David, how are you?
Good. I was just going to say, I really appreciate your going over the fact of practicing. I video record my class lectures. I teach hybrid. And it's amazing how you can play back your video that you just did. You don't even realize what facial expressions you're doing because you're in the moment. You don't realize how you're not maybe enunciating your words. These are just little things I'm picking up, and I'm going to definitely practice today doing a video before I share with the class tomorrow.
And it really is an interesting dynamic. If you've for those of you that have never made a video, maybe if there's anybody listening that's never recorded their self, you can think about you could say, oh my gosh, I've taught this course for years or whatever, and I don't have any problems recording this, or this is going to be a breeze, right? So but for some individuals, as soon as you get in front of the camera and click record and you see that red light blinking, it just, you may freeze up. So it's interesting to work with individuals that have this level of thinking it's going to go one way and it not go that way. So I think that's where the practice kind of comes in, and then it just kind of becomes natural over time. Anybody else have any questions? If you could record yourself, be sure to turn down phone volume. Yeah, that's a good one. Robert just noted. Yeah, you need to make sure, like my computer now, since I'm sharing my screen, I have my notifications set to do not disturb, so you don't want emails popping up while I'm making a recording, right? So that's always a best practice. You're going to want to make sure your phone is muted and there's no ringing going on during a recording. So Dr. Storms asked, in terms of captioning, I know they're saying we should be in the high 90s. Is captioning better in YouTube or stream? That is an excellent question, Dr. Storms. I am glad you asked. Okay, so with my experience, the auto captioning tool in in Stream has worked a little bit better for me. Um, I haven't uploaded a video in a while, maybe about a year or so, and requested YouTube uh, provide captions. But in in Stream automatically will add punctuation. They will add um, periods and commas, make the first letter of sentences, capitalize the first letter. Microsoft Stream also tends to reduce the number of the uhs and those sort of things that are not necessarily words, but often come out while someone is speaking. So I've had better experience with Stream, but it's really gonna depend on personal preference as well, because the sharing options in Stream um, are not the same as YouTube. So essentially, Stream is just a tool or platform that's only available to those inside of UNC Pembroke. Okay, yeah, that's a good one, Robert. Thank you, Dr. Storms. So yeah, and there's always this question of, if you're making instructional videos, there's always this question of, should I uh, type out a script? Should I read from a script, or just kind of go through the presentation or the content naturally? And that's really going to depend on you, a person, personal preference. Not everyone can read from a script and sound natural. Most of the time, unless you've had some kind of training or a lot of practice, most of the time when you're reading from a script, students are going to be able to tell that you're reading. And as an online student, I appreciate having or I appreciate videos where faculty members are natural, where they're, if it's a talking head, if it's a video where they're showing themselves, I appreciate them being, in a natural environment and speaking really the way they would in class, in a really natural way. If someone's reading, if a professor is reading to you, then you're really most likely going to be able to tell that they're reading. And that's a good point, Robert. But you just noted that doing an outline is probably a good mid level approach. Just having some bullet points. You know your content well enough, right? You're gonna know what you're talking about. So in most cases, bullet points is going to be your best approach. Using a lot of numbers for captioning, yeah, that can be challenging, because these auto captioning tools, they're going to want to spell numbers out for the most part. Yeah, that's going to be challenging. Yeah, especially for those in the sciences. Yeah, making a list of talking points before recording is always a best practice. Essentially what I found was, in my research, the more preparation you can do in terms of outlines, even on the technical side, the more preparation you can do, the better your content, or the better your video is going to be. There's a lot of things that you can fix. You can fix a lot of things using those editing tools. However, that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to go in and take out pauses, and if you want to take out ums, or if you want to take out, you want to delete certain sections, it takes a lot of time to do that. And I think it's more effective if you just do preparation and try to minimize the the ways in which you have to edit the video after it's recorded. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, I'm not hearing any. I don't see anything new in the chat. I really appreciate your attentiveness in attending this presentation. I really appreciate you coming out today and watching. Um, Feel free to reach out if I can answer any additional questions. Terry Locklear, Office of Online Learning. There's my email. My phone number also is 910-775-4074. Thank you so much once again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.